everyone, welcome back to PyAI Hub. In the previous lesson, we have learned about subqueries. So I hope you remember. And today we will compare two powerful operators that are in and exist, and both are used with subqueries but differently. Okay, so understanding the difference is very important for writing efficient SQL queries. So that we need all that. So our first idea, this is our core idea. What in does? In compares the value. And what about the exists? It check the existence. Okay, that's how it works. Now let's assign the location. Afterwards we call our tb. Now we started to write the query. So what we are going to write, we are going to write that we are going to select the students, and over the students table, we are taking the students table. From there we are taking the column name, student id, and we are going to compare it with in and subquery. So let's do that. So let's select staff from students. This is our table. Afterwards, we are going to filter it using workloads. Work, the student ID, let's call the student ID, and we are using in. Now the comparison starts. So until here, we write the query. So afterward, we didn't mention anything other than the student ID. This is where we are gonna compare, and this is where we should use our in. After in, we are using a subquery, that is select student ID, and then let's take it from students marks table, where the score is greater than or equal to 80. Okay, so now we need to know what happened here. How do we get this query answer as this? Let me explain. So this query finds students who scored above 80 or more. Okay, the subquery returns a list of student IDs. After that, the outer query check if the student ID is in that list. What happened here? First of all, the subquery returns the student ID. So as per this condition, where the score is greater than or equal to 80, this subquery will return an output. Afterwards, we are going to compare it with the student ID in students table. So that's what happened here. Okay, so I hope you understand. Now we are going to talk about exists, that is checking the existence. So let's move the same query like select staff from students, and we are naming the students as S because S, it is like a abbreviation for students. Okay, and then we use verb exist. We are using exist and open the subquery. So here you can see that how we are using the subquery. So after the exist, I open the subquery path, and here also after the in, I open the subquery. Okay, so you can understand where we need to use the subquery. And when it comes to current scenario, let's we use workloads. Afterwards, we use exist. Now we are going to use select one from marks, and let's m. That's the abbreviation of marks. So we don't want to write the marks fully in every verb when we use to wrote queries. Okay. Now let's use verb. Now we are going to filter that s dot students student ID that equals to m dot student ID. So now you understand why do we use s and m. Now here we didn't rewrite the students. Instead of students, we just use s like we mentioned here. Okay, and instead of marks we use n. And now we are going to use and we are going to compare that with scope, which is equal to 80. So let's make some that gap in between. Okay, and then let's run it. So we got an error because of this. Okay, the spelling is different. Now let's recheck and correct the spelling. Now here we wrote exist instead of the correct spelling. So let's write EXISITS, okay, instead of this. So this is how we get errors we are using this, and sometimes we get errors, right? Okay, so this is our answer. So instead of comparing values, exist check if a match row exists. Okay, so as soon as the SQL find a match, it returns true. Okay, so as we say, in for comparing the value and exist for like existence, checking the existence. Okay, now as a clear thing, we compare in with list and exist check if a row exists. Okay, so that's it. That's how this works. You can think of it is like in is a value in the list, or exist as does a matching row exist, like I said before. So let's think like that. If it exists, it will give that row. If it isn't, it will ignore that. Okay, so exist is usually faster when working with larger datasets, and it helps to stop as soon as it find a match. So you understand how reliable to use or effective to use the query exist. Okay, it will find, if it find the match, it will just stop it and give the value. Okay, and what in do there? In checks all the values, like in compares. Okay, so that's how both works. Now let's use another example. So I would like to use an example from the table students and marks. First of all, we will select students table for that. And afterwards, let's give the S as the name of students. I mean the students table name as S. Then verb, we are using exist. Okay, EXIST. Okay, so afterwards we open that. Then we use the subquery. Select one from marks. We are using marks as M. Verb, we can see S dot student ID, that is equals to M dot student ID. Okay, so what happened here? We use S dot student ID and M dot student ID, and so I hope you understand the error faster than me, because we didn't write select staff from students. Okay, now we get this, and let's do another. Okay, using the same query but in a different way. Okay, firstly we use exist, and now we are gonna use in instead. So let's use in and run. Let's use in with something more than that. Okay, so here first of all we select staff from students S, and we give where we give exist. But when it comes to the case of in, we need something to compare instead of this. So for that, start from students, afterwards we use the word, and then we use student ID. In after the workloads, we use student ID. In, then the condition that should be taken is select student ID from marks. So while we are using in, we need some condition, and this is it. So both query gives a similar results, but they work differently in internally, and we get almost the same results, right? But the work is different here. Here we give the condition, and when it comes to exist, we give what? We give a checking. It check it and in compares it. So as a recap, in this lesson we learned how in works, how exist work, and difference between them. So now you know when to use, word to use, and how it works, how the inquiry is different from exist query, all that. In the next lesson, we explore string and date functions, which are very useful for data analysis. Okay, so remember that in list checking and exist existence checking. Okay, Hope it's clear and have a great day. Bye.